Welcome back to another episode of Girlfriends Without Benefits. As you
Hello.
may have gathered by the title, today we are talking about death again.
I think
Such a
it's
beautiful
interesting.
topic.
I think it's interesting that in history, historically, like little deaths were orgasms. Did you guys know that?
No,
That
What?
was yeah, that
say
was
more words because this is not where I thought this was going.
Wait, what in history?
that just came into my head. Like, thank you, classical education. Yeah, that's how authors would refer to orgasms as little deaths.
Now I'm Googling this feverishly.
Yeah, do
Googling in
it.
my head goes to like DMT secretion during orgasms and like death,
Yeah.
that like also ties to death.
Yeah.
Okay. That might be another episode that comes out of this one.
I know. I didn't have my mind on that either. But as soon as you said it, I'm like, oh yeah, just came into my head.
Interesting. I'm wondering if
It
that was
came
some sort of cult
your head.
manipulation.
That's a really good,
Because
like,
if you think
you
about
could write it.
female empowerment and then orgasm, I'm like, is it
Yes.
some sort of, I'm like, is that true or is it cult manipulation that's saying that?
Wait, is
Well,
orgasm a female word?
no,
No, but if
but it was for women in referencing women, and also in the
It's
Victorian
in
times.
French. In French, la petite mort.
Yeah.
that's
The
And
little
in the
death.
and in the Victorian times when they were doing shock therapy for women, to get out their crazies, they also used orgasm as part of the therapy.
To get out their crazies.
Yeah,
well, now this throws off our whole title, guys,
I
because
know.
today's title is Days Since Last Death.
It was not supposed to be sexual at all.
Apparently, we can't even have a conversation about death without orgasm.
But actually, it totally applies and segues into because there's a thousand ways to die, and I think that culturally we've been conditioned to think that being uncomfortable or being like out of the norm or being out of like just like this kind of sedentary way of being is wrong, like high highs and low lows, and that's not true, right? So I think it all goes together.
Yeah, but now when I'm saying days since last death, is it actually days since last orgasm?
No, it is not. We are not
Okay.
changing that. Absolutely not. Because in the way that we're talking about it is about pulling the death card and ego death and what all of that means. As much as I love days since last death in the other meaning.
In the other sense. Okay, so days since last death. This came up because, so as you guys know from having listened to the podcast, Jade, Kaylin, and I pull cards on a pretty regular basis. And I mean, I had a really good week where Jade pulled me every single queen in the deck and priestess, and I was just rocking it.
Priestess all week long. Yeah, you were
But
killing it.
This week we're back to death.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Jade, do you want to kind of give a little blurb about my death? A eulogy, if you will.
Yeah, I think that when you look at a birth chart or your human design chart, it's pretty obvious when you look in there if you're a person that's destined to go through a lot of Plutonian changes, shall we say, which is very Pluto and Scorpio. They're all about death and transformation and rebirth. But people can do that just in cycles, right? So if you are destined or born to go through a lot of transformation, that's really valuable information to have, because it can feel very overwhelming to the person who is going through that and feel wrong or bad inside your body. But I think Cass is incredibly Plutonian if you look at her chart. So am I. But when Cass almost takes comfort, don't you, in that fact that you're like, yeah, that resonates, that's right, that feels good to you at this point in your life, wouldn't you say?
Yeah,
like it's natural.
Absolutely. I feel like because I've seen so many deaths in my life that I always know something good is on the other side of it. So like as I'm going through something and as I'm kind of like treading the waters or kind of flowing back and forth with like whatever's coming up, There's a hawk that's flying outside of my window right now, just as
Of
you
course,
know, go
of
back to
course.
Bullied by the Universe episode.
course.
But as I know that I'm kind of going through things like this, I know something as big is going to come out. Like, I know I'm just not being fucked over by the universe or by my spirit team or by guides or led into the dark just to be left there. Like, I know that in order to see the light and to see the positive and to see the beauty and to reap those benefits, like, I have to go through the dark. So it's not a comfortable thing by any stretch, but it's a more willingness. There's not like a fight of like, oh, this is going to be the rest of my life. I'm like, oh no, it's a week, or it's a season, or it's a day, or sometimes it's just a couple hours.
If you're watching us on YouTube, you can see the death card. So I have very like light, airy, sunny, beautiful cards. Surprise, surprise. But the death card in the deck that I pull from is the crumbling. But if you look at the card, if you look on the other side of what's happening, it's this like beautiful paradise with flowers, and it's gorgeous. And so I think that is such a great illustration for what pulling the death card is, right? So it's like you are letting go of whatever it is that you had in mind so that you can get to this beauty, right? This birth, this newness, right?
Yeah. My death card is a little creepier, but still there is light, light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. I'm going to briefly describe what it feels like to go through this sort of transformation or death from a low road, someone who hasn't reached to the place where they're comfortable with it. And then Cass, I want you to describe what it feels like to go through it from that place where you're almost embracing it.
Yeah, totally.
Like I said, I have countless clients who have this sort of, the universe is like, yeah, you're here on this lifetime to go through these kinds of transformation. And what it can feel like when you're trying to stop it or push it away, like things can start to happen, insomnia, anxiety, just feeling like you need to do something. So a lot of clients will like do something drastic, like chop all their hair off or dye their hair. Or I have, I'm thinking of specific people that come into my mind, of course. One who will just start, like, she just starts going clubbing all the time and just getting it out, like trying to get it out by extra sex, extra, right? Like you're seeking some way to get back in your body because you feel like you're kind of just crumbling, and it can feel really scary. So that's what it kind of feels like when you're a little bit afraid of it and trying to kind of stop it from happening. Cass, explain what it feels like when you feel it coming and you embrace it.
So it's funny because when you first said that, I was like, I don't know if I can put it into words, but as you were explaining it, what kind of dropped into my head is when your clients are going through it and they're not embracing it, they're looking external, they're going external. They're like using substances, using people, using clubs, using all sex, whatever. None of it's bad, but they're looking externally for something to fill that void.
Coping mechanisms.
Correct. Thanks, Psychology Buff 101. Versus like for me, it's very much the opposite. I go deeply internal. So it's like dissecting like where patterns came from. What does that look like? Psychoanalyzing the ever loving shit out of myself and to like anyone who will listen. Basically doing like, I mean, I will sleep more. I will nourish my body more. I will go on walks more. I will kind of play a little bit more into that solitude. Like today I have, Pilates, or tomorrow I have Pilates scheduled, and then following an acupuncture scheduled. So I'm going to different healers that are all forcing me into a deeper level of embodiment. So I think that's like the big parallel. And I did a lot of what Jade was explaining her clients did in kind of my late teens, 20s, late 20s. Like that was very normal because that seems easier. And it also seems like you're trying to get some sort of fulfillment from someone that you don't already have for yourself. So you're just basically handing your power away and who you are away on a silver platter to someone else.
I think when you're going through these deaths too, right? It's an opportunity to look at what you're holding on to in an unhealthy way, or what you're clinging to in an unhealthy way. So that way you can release those things to then make room for better, right? But then also see how you're attached to things, or you're holding on to things that you don't need to. And everyone goes through this. Like, this isn't just a Cass thing. Like, even those of us that aren't made to die all the time, we all will go through these deaths.
Pluto's in everyone's chart. Pluto's
Correct.
in everyone's chart. It's not, if you're Plutonian, it just means that Pluto plays a very important role in your chart. But yes, Kat or Kaylin, you've got Pluto sitting right smack in your second house. And it's actually one of your most powerful planets. It's part of your your gifts. So it works in your favor, but it's still there forcing you to shift and transform. Absolutely.
And I mean, we've talked about this before as well. So in episode 8, the ego, death, and dirty laundry episode, they talked like real live action of going through one of these. So we're just bringing it kind of full circle to another level, and to a deeper level of education and exploration, if you will, about like what do these look like, and that they can be reoccurring. Like, it's not just a one and done type thing.
So it's not necessarily funny for us, but it's definitely more comical when we start pulling these cards for Cass, because we're like, oh shit, not again. And it generally like mirrors. So like Jade will pull the death card and I will pull crumbling for Cass, and we're like, sorry, you just got confirmation. Like, yes, that was definitely for you. And she'll feel it coming on too. Like, she knew it was coming before Jade even was like, yeah, I pulled death for you today. And then I pulled, and I'm like, yeah, I pulled crumbling for you. So like, you about to die today. I'm sorry about that.
And
but
I will
cyclical almost.
I didn't pull the death card for myself. I pulled shapeshifter, which is a change of perspective and looking at things from a different angle. To dissect things.
Same stuff.
Yeah, same stuff. Same stuff, different card. Like, but I mean, the death card for me again kind of goes hand in hand with rebirth. So like, now when I pull a death card for myself, I get excited because I'm like, oh, well, like a rebirth is coming. Like, this is beautiful. But like the shapeshifter for me, of again looking at that different perspective, is like, okay, I'm gonna have to analyze and get down in the dirt and look at some parts.
Yeah. And I want to go back really quickly to, talking about ways that we as humans get back in our body. And Cass already said it. It's not bad to do, go to the club and have sex and whatever you need to do. For instance, when I got back from my ayahuasca retreat, I was having a very hard time getting in my body, and I was trying to go out in public, and it was just very intense. Like, Cass is nodding her head. Like, it was just, integration was very hard for me. And that all changed one night when I was on my bike, and my partner and I were riding around. We were trying to like go see some live music. Oh, bad idea. So like leave really quickly, riding our bikes. This is like 5 days after I got home, and I see the lake, and you guys know how important Lake Michigan is to me. And I just was compelled, like, screech, rode my bike up to the lake, tore off all my clothes, and just skinny dipped in that lake, just dive in, then got home and just, all over the house, whatever we needed. That did help me get back in my body. That's what I needed. So we're humans. We don't always have to do like, and now I've scheduled a trip to the healer, which I do all of that too. But sometimes you just need to get back in your body, however you can get back in your body, because you're human. I just wanted to say that. So it's not bad or wrong if you're doing that, those kinds of things.
See, what I will say though is I would love to like know when they're coming up a little bit ahead of time, because like today I basically firebombed our schedule because I was like, I need time to die before tonight. Like, I have a very important call at 4:00, which is why I know a lot of this stuff is surfacing and is coming up, because I'm asking for some really, really big shit this week. So like, I wish I would have, like, I don't know, pre-scheduled death. Like, can that be a thing? Like, oh, look at Cass's calendar for Monday. Oh, it's closed from 12 to 4. She's going to die before that call.
Here's what's great though. And this is how you know you are in a partnership with the right people. You said like, hey, we got to move up this recording because I need time to die today. And Jade, we're like, yeah, you got it. No problem.
Well, let's be honest. First, I was like, what? What are we doing? When are we doing that?
Fair. I was there. Jade was not, but then you joined. It's fine.
Yes. As soon as I understand what's going on, you have to explain it a few times. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I'm here. I got it. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Sweet.
We can't pre-schedule, but we can firebomb our schedules in order to, get it done.
Yes.
No hard feelings.
It's so funny because I was also just listening to, I think her name's Channy. It's an astrology podcast. We'll find it and then link it in the show notes. It's wonderful. But she was like, and this week compared to last week is just so wonderful and beautiful. And there's so much positive energy. And then like, I start feeling all of these things come up and I'm like, well, that's for the collective, not necessarily for me.
That's one of the reasons why I have a hard time like reading my horoscope or even listening to a lot I am an astrologer. I can look all this shit up myself. It's pretty easy. And I rarely do because I don't necessarily, if I want to go, if I'm feeling a certain way, then I will go and I'll be like, I need planetary assistance to support this way that I'm feeling. But generally, I just try to check in with my own, mind, body, soul connection, as opposed to like, looking at it that way. And whatever you need to do to feel solid and grounded, do that. But
would you say, Jade, this is a total sidetrack, but I am interested to know that it's technically different for all of us because all of our birth charts are different. So like the way that the energy of the planets are, you can't necessarily put a blanket on it of like, okay, this is how, because the planets are here, this is how we're all going to feel this week, because all of the way that the planets are in our birth chart and the way that we are is different.
Absolutely. If Mars is in Gemini, and that's all, all of a sudden you'll be feeling able to assert yourself in a more communicative way. Well, maybe not if Mars in Gemini squares your natal Mars and it's like making this very harsh sort of like, I can't move. Like, it's very personal. It can become very personal. So,
Is that why you don't like horoscopes?
Right. Well, and horoscopes.
Fun fact about Jade.
Horoscopes.
Yeah. I mean, I have honestly not done a lot of research. I'm sure that there are astrologers out there that have some really good advice, and they're just using your sun sign though. They're just using, So it's can get off in the weeds really quickly there. But I tend to just kind of focus on, connecting inward as opposed to looking for, again, like to Cass's point, external reasons for the way I'm feeling. Right. Yeah.
No, I started listening to it. It was interesting because I don't listen to it for me personally. I'm not like, oh, Mars is in Gemini, like it's going to be a great week. Like I actually listen to it more from like a business and collective perspective. So like people listen to like Business Insider for business. I listen to like the astrology side for business.
Wisdom.
Like it makes but that makes sense to me. Like,
yes.
Like I don't I know how I operate is very differently. However, but like if the collective is feeling this, like how can I lend my business and what we're doing to the collective energies that are going on? Like that's kind of my piece as to why I listen to it. Not that I need to give you guys any reason by any stretch, but it's my newspaper for business.
It's so wise. I mean, and you're following age-old, like historically kings and queens and the people who needed to make the decisions for their communities and their countries used astrologers. So
what's so funny, so before Jade, so BJ before Jade,
that's perfect.
That's perfect for me.
Before Jade came around, and this was, Kaylin was around too. And I said, I need an astrologer. And like, I felt like this just deep needing of like an astrologer on my team. Like before I even knew anything about like, kings and queens used it. And like a lot of like world leaders use it. And one of the executives, I think I mentioned this quote before, I can't think of it is. A big real estate mogul says, if you want to be a billionaire, use astrology. If you want to be a millionaire, don't. Like just like lends so much to this art and science of it. But I said I needed one and had no idea where that kind of unique yearning came from. And I'm like, oh, there's got to be some past life stuff in there where I had that person and I had that go-to that I could like pull forth. But now having one, I think that everyone needs one.
Absolutely.
It should be like, I don't know, a pen. Like, oh, I have an astrologist. Of course you do.
So true.
So
It's true.
cool. Well, I have a death scheduled in a little while, guys. So
We're gonna have to go. We'll get
we're gonna
better.
wrap this podcast up and we'll see you on the other side of the death.
Check in with our social media accounts to see how many days since Cass's last death.
Yeah, I think what we're gonna do is similar to like the workman's comp, days since last work incident. We'll do days since last death.
Beautiful.
Right now, it's going to be approximately -4 hours.
And we'll check in with the beautiful abundance that comes out of her death, because we can't have just the negativity. We need the negative and the positive.
Thank you, Butterfly Kaylin.
You're welcome.